Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Your Health is Your Choice, right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest is our wonderful mentor, Anna Olinskia, and her beau, Rick Fisher. We're going to be talking about a very big topic today, and I'm going to say big because I was a victim of this. And hearing today, over 40 years later, that this is still an issue is really quite disturbing for me. I'm talking about the Copper IUD. Back in my day, we called it the Copper T. It was a device inserted to stop you from being pregnant. Well, my horrific story, before we bring Anna and Rick on, is the fact that I had this Copper T. I think I was on my second one, and I did get pregnant. The baby died in my fallopian tube, causing a massive infection. It ended up having to have the tube and an ovary removed, and them telling me that I maybe not be able to have children because the womb may have been damaged due to infection. And this was all because of the Copper T, the toxicity from it, me getting pregnant from it. And I had 4 conceptions and 3 beautiful healthy children after that, because I don't give up. I certainly don't give into it. But it was scary. It was very, very scary, and it took me an awful long time to recover from it, and all because of this Copper T. So we're going to be talking about it today, but it's a beautiful story of how this came about. Anna and Rick were dating way back, and Anna went on the Copper T, and I'm going to let them tell you it for themselves, and she kind of withdrew from everything, from the relationship, from everything, and subsequently they parted for a while. She went on to marry someone else, and years later Rick came back, but he came back with a mission because she had unknowingly sent him on it. So let's dive right into this wonderful tale of love and of the horror of the Copper T. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
No, it truly is a wonderful story, and I'm going to give you kudos, Rick, for the way this story came about. Anna went on the Copper T, she withdrew, she didn't realize it was the copper that itself was changing the way she was thinking, feeling, and being. But for you, it became an investigation. It became something that is the why, what's causing this. And it took you down a path that now today is serving so many people around the world, but has also brought you back to Anna, your first love here. And of course, the two of you are together again, which is just wonderful. People finding their meaningful purpose is wonderful as well. But finding that original love again is just cherry on the top there. It's obviously wonderful. But how about you both kind of just, tell it from your words of this beautiful love story. Anna, how about you start off?
Well, like you said, Rick and I, we met in 2013 and we dated, and it was amazing. It was one of those, almost pretty much love at first sight stories. And then in our planning for the future, we decided that we weren't ready for kids right then. So I wanted a non-hormonal birth control because I had depression in the past, and playing with my hormones was not an option for me. So I did research, and what I found was the Copper IUD. So I got that inserted, but little did I know that was not the healthiest option for me. And I had one prior to the one that I had with Rick. But this one, the second one, that's when all the symptoms started to come on. I was tired, I was lethargic, many more, even that I personally can't remember, so much now, because that part of my life was, the memory even there is affected a little bit.
It belongs over there.
It belongs over there, right? But in that, the copper toxicity and the excess copper, one of the things that life was too much for me at that point. And I wanted definitely to withdraw from it. I had 2 little kids, so withdrawing from them wasn't an option, but everybody else in my life that I could cut out and cut off, I did. And Rick was one of those people. So,
which sent him off on a different path, right, Rick?
yeah.
Right. So I never really went away. I just dove into the research of what happened to Anna. The fatigue was ever increasing during our last few months together. The fatigue took her over. There were other symptoms as well. It got quite scary in the last couple of weeks. And then just the complete emotional withdrawal and cutting off of myself from the relationship, and then other people in her life as well. And then we split up, and she went on her journey and I went on my journey. And like I said, my journey was that of investigating what happened to her. All we knew is that based on a blood test, she had elevated copper, and her doctor thought, well, maybe it's a copper IUD. Let's take that out. So my investigation began, those next 2 years were nothing but researching copper. And over the course of those 2 years, I met countless women who've had similar experiences. I went on to create what is today the world's #1 education, support, and resource site for copper toxicity, which is coppertoxic.com. And one of the big issues here is that women are being given the copper IUD without proper informed consent. And that is just tragic. The symptoms that these women are experiencing, and it's not like the fatigue, the hair loss, digestive issues, all kinds of mental health issues, the anxiety, the depression, withdrawal, apathy, all of these things are all connected back to a copper imbalance. And of course, the copper IUD is not the only cause of copper toxicity. There are many other contributing factors as well. But there are forums out there on the internet of thousands and thousands and thousands of women, and I myself in clinical practice work with thousands of women as well, suffering from the consequences of copper toxicity caused from the copper IUD. So one of my missions is just to help women get the informed consent that they deserve. That should be a basic fundamental right for every woman's health.
Should be.
Right? And
it should be #1.
It drives me crazy when women go back to their doctor and with these symptoms, whether it's fatigue, whether it's the depression, whether it's the hair loss or digestion, or, I'm struggling with my feelings, my mental health, whatever. And the doctor just keeps on denying that there could be any connection to copper. And yet this
but in my case, it's all in your head. Take this antidepressant.
It's all in your head. Yeah. Here's the antidepressant, right? Mm-hmm. And that is the common message being given to women. And this is not, even though I have definitely brought this awareness to the forefront over the past 7-8 years, this is not necessarily new information. These warnings have been out there for 40 years, beginning back in the 1970s by a doctor named Dr. Carl Pfeiffer, who is an MD and PhD. And he wrote a book called Mental and Elemental Nutrients, a physician's guide to healthcare. It was a book written for physicians, warning about the dangers of copper from the pill, which we can talk about in a moment, and the copper IUD. And yet very few in the medical community have ever listened, and millions of women are suffering as a result. So I threw my life into this research. I built that website, brought the awareness to the surface. I work in clinical practice doing this work every day. And I kept on during these years trying to reach out to her, but she wasn't quite ready until this year. And finally she agreed to have a chat, and we chatted, and now we're back full circle doing this work together. And Anna's come through her healing beautifully. Mm-hmm. And now we're on a joint mission to bring this education to the public.
I always say that there's always something with the redirect, and had Anna not been on it, had she not broken up with you, had you not been a caring enough person to want to know what's really going on with her because you were concerned, most people say, oh, she's just being bitchy, I'm leaving, and like us, who wants to be somebody that's that miserable, and that's what most men will do, I'm sorry to say, right? Instead, for you, it's like the why, and it threw you in a totally different career that's serving so many different women around the world. And it's a love story. So, it's the redirects that we get along the way, however unpleasant they are at the time. It's always like, well, what is the bigger purpose?
Right.
For you two, the bigger purpose was the needing to know about copper in our system. And we get it from the copper tea, and you say we get it from the pill as well? There's copper in the pill?
We do. Let me just backtrack to one thing you said about that bigger purpose. And, after this breakup, and I went through my own just distraught depression period of losing the woman I loved. And I was working with a life coach at that time. And she told me at the time to look at the gift that had happened. And I wasn't ready to hear those words at that time. I was doing my research. I was already helping people in those early days, but I couldn't see the gift. All I could see was the tragedy and the hurt. But you're absolutely right. And this speaks to everybody in your audience as well who might be suffering with symptoms. Like, it's not pleasant. Whatever is going through in life, there are challenges. But if you choose to look at those challenges as how is this serving me, or what doors could this possibly open up for me? Right, there is always a gift in everything, and certainly
there's always a why, right?
There's always a why. Yeah. So going back to your next question, then, is how does the pill affect copper status? See, the Copper IUD is sold to women as non-hormonal, and that's why it's safe.
Right.
But that's absolute nonsense, because all of the hormonal issues that affect mood, we think of hormonal issues and mood changes, right? The whole PMS thing is a mood thing. Well, PMS, the symptoms of PMS and estrogen are really a copper imbalance. So anything that raises estrogen increases copper retention. And likewise, as copper goes up, it creates a pathway that leads to increased estrogen pileup. So there's a very close relationship between copper and estrogen. So if you're on the pill, or anything, or HRT, hormone replacement therapy, anything that is increasing your estrogen in your body, that is also going to lead to a tendency towards further copper accumulation.
I assume that it's in the estrogen that women are going through with menopause, when they're trying to give them more estrogen or something to balance it out, and then going through menopause itself it can be for some people quite horrific, very mood changing, physical changing, the sweats, the everything else, and then having this on top of it as well, I can't imagine would be at all beneficial, because it's already horrific. Why is the copper still in there? Or is it the chemical combination of whatever the pill is that incites more copper within us? Do we carry copper within us?
Yes, copper is an essential nutrient. We all need copper.
Right.
Copper serves many beneficial roles: energy production, controlling candida fungus, bone integrity, many really important functions copper serves. We need it.
Right.
But there's a difference between a healthy available amount of copper and excess unavailable stored copper. Too much copper. So here's also why this whole topic is so misunderstood out there, and it sounds simple, but it's not. And so here's what happens: as copper accumulates in the body, it has a stimulatory effect. It has a similar effect on the brain as D-amphetamine. So it tends to give a person energy. And people who are selling copper supplements, that's a great selling point. Hey, I'm taking your copper supplement, I feel great. So what? So what? You can drink buckets of coffee and feel energized too. It doesn't mean that that's a good thing to be doing.
Right.
So over time, that overstimulation eventually takes a toll on the adrenal system, and then you go into fatigue and later on adrenal burnout. And with that, your level of a protein called ceruloplasmin declines. And that protein is what binds to copper to make copper available. So you you're taking in all this copper through various sources, whether it's the IUD, whether it's the pill estrogens, whether it's copper sulfate sprayed on organic produce, whether it's copper piping in your house. There's all kinds of different sources. This copper accumulates, takes a toll on the adrenals, lowers ceruloplasmin, leads into copper bio unavailability. Excess copper leading to a deficiency of available copper. So when you do the research and people say, well, we're all deficient in copper, we should take more. No, the reason why people are deficient in copper in the first place is because they don't have enough available copper, because they probably had too much exposure to it in the first place.
It's a little kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? Yeah. Everything in life is about balance. And when, I'm a Libran, so they all think balance has to be perfect like this, total equilibrium. When we're talking about balance, it's rather like the wind. We want to be the breeze. The scales are going up and down very gently. What we don't want is the highs and the lows. Yeah. Because that throws everything off. Our equilibrium, everything gets thrown off. And kind of the way I'm reading this is that copper will throw off our balance. And our whole equilibrium is out. And when our equilibrium is out, our thought process, our body, everything is not in sync with each other. So therefore it can't produce what we need in order to kind of fulfill our days. Am I getting this right, or am I being more confusing?
No, absolutely, right? I mean, as copper goes more and more imbalanced, either way, it is throwing us off. Now, right. It's not just copper. Copper is not the only culprit. If you imagine your minerals as a chart, okay, and you imagine that chart as a musical equalizer with all those bars going up and down. You see the music playing and the bars going up and down. Yeah. It's similar in that sense, where as copper moves, it's now creating a cascade of changes across your entire mineral system. So copper is going up. Now it's moving all those other bars as well. And all those other movements create their own set or their subset of symptoms. So copper is like the first domino in a chain of dominoes, right? Not all symptoms are directly related to copper. But you have to go a step further in thinking, like, what is copper doing to the mineral system? Okay, it's throwing those minerals out of balance. And what does that mineral imbalance lead to? Well, that imbalance creates those symptoms.
Yeah, it's a lack of harmony, isn't it? It's kind of conflicting music coming together.
Right.
Which one does the body listen to?
Right.
Yeah.
And in fairness, nobody is perfectly balanced.
No.
Right. And that's also a misconception is, well, I need to get back into perfect balance. And that's a really hard goal to achieve and nearly impossible. And you might reach perfect balance for a day, and then even stress alone can throw you back out of balance the next day. So being in perfect balance is not a realistic goal. It's just having the awareness and working to support your body to properly detox, to take in the right nutrients, and to work toward improving your balance.
Yeah, as you said, it's a daily thing, morning to night, each day is different, and you deal with it accordingly. Anna, when you had, the copper tea out, how long did it take you to kind of get yourself back?
That's a loaded question. It was a process for me. So because the biological information that I needed was coming from the source that I cut out of my life, I wasn't willing to hear him on the biological side of things. So that's where I took my journey on the emotional side of things. So my goal was simple, was to be happy. And we spoke about that in the other video. It's always been to be happy. So,
and what your definition of happiness is, not what somebody else's definition is.
No, it was, what I felt internally happy. And so, my journey was essentially, and I'm learning now, was just to shut down my fight or flight system that was constantly being attacked by the copper, right? So the copper would elevate my fight or flight, and then I would go and I would shut it down. So that's the, emotional release techniques or belief system removal and that kind of thing. So I took my journey in that sense. It took me 7 years to get to that place where I'm at now. So just doing it, that one piece of the puzzle without the biological side of it, I did it. It just took me a long amount of time, and not an amount of time that I would wish on.
No, but that's the purpose. You need to take that time for you to step into what you do.
Yes.
You're looking at the physical side of things. Yes. You're looking at the emotional side of things. And if you don't look at both, you're not attending the whole.
No,
both of you going on your separate journeys to learn what you needed to learn, and then coming back and merging it as a whole.
Yeah.
Now you're in balance.
Yes.
You're able to serve people physically and emotionally, because it's not just physical. It's not just, stop the cup of tea and you'll be fine. No. There's the whole emotional garbage you've got to deal with.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then does the emotional at its extreme mean there's still some copper left in the body, or something else is out of balance? And that is the importance of the reason why the two of you had to have separate journeys to come back and make it a complete journey together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We were even talking about it yesterday that the copper, if you have any past trauma or any negative belief systems, what the copper is going to do is turn up the volume.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yes.
On all of those. So they're insanely present and right in the forefront, right? So yeah, it's all about merging the two, and even the spiritual side too, right? That's another, component to all of it, and the full body healing, or the full balanced healing to all of it. So
yes, we want people to step into the spiritual emotional, not the human emotional.
Yes.
The human emotional will always blow something out of proportion, right? And spiritual emotion is that, don't worry, the soul and heart has got a solution for this.
All right. Yes. Yeah. So learning to navigate all of that too, right? So yeah, we each had our separate journey so that we could come together and now do this and help others going through it, because it is huge out there.
But both of you having had your own separate journeys over the same topic, is the same purpose. It just makes it stronger. It reminds me of a couple I have interviewed a few times, but this one was on relationships. And they've been married 49 years, but at about the 14-year mark, they realized their marriage was pretty well dying. And what they decided to do was both of them to go their separate ways, not part, but both investigate what life is for them individually. And then each one of them awoke to a particular path in life. And then when they came back together in their purpose, it made their marriage more purposefully. Yeah. And they work each in their own department, but they can come together as a whole. Yeah. So, I feel this is your story as well. You had to separate, to discover, to come back, to create.
Yes.
Yeah. And, at a kindergarten level, mineral imbalance, people think of the physical symptoms, copper in terms of, maybe for women, it's the bleeding, it's the cramping, it's the hair loss. Those are the physical things that we see or feel. But the effects of copper are just as much emotional and psychological as they are physical. So both need to be understood and addressed for optimal healing, for more complete healing. Mm-hmm. And the work that I do with minerals can definitely address the emotional side of things. But when we add in all the things that Anna has also trained in, now it is definitely more powerful.
Yeah, the whole body workshop. Yeah. I'm trying to think back, because it is 78 is when I had the ectopic pregnancy and the IUD out and everything. And I'm trying to remember, my life at that time. And obviously, with a dead baby in your tube for 4 months, rotting, your body is going to go through the physical. But I'm trying to remember where I was emotionally. And as you were saying, Anna, it's going to exaggerate the emotions that are already kind of systemically there. And I think for me at that particular time, I had come out of a relationship, an engagement, and I knew I didn't want to be where I was anymore, but I didn't know how to get to where I was going. Right. And I think for me, the sense of loss, of being lost, was very exaggerated at that time. But never would I have put it, to the cup of tea, doing this, exaggerating that feeling. So it's very interesting when you look at things, in hindsight, of maybe that was the reason at that time, because obviously you're talking about a doctor that started something in the late 70s, and I was a victim of this in the late 70s. So it was before anybody, they didn't associate my problem with that. So, as I said, take an antidepressant. It's all in your head.
Wow.
That was their favorite line.
It still is common, unfortunately. It still is.
We are bombarded every day with women who are being told that very thing. They're dealing with the depression that began with or shortly after the insertion of their copper IUD, and they're just being told, well, you know, here's a drug for the depression.
Right. And which can then send you into abstaining from life altogether, because it can switch you right off. And now you're in a spiral going down and down, and you don't have the will to come back out again either, because it's just, you're, never mind out of balance, you're in a deep dark pit at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in that deep dark pit, it doesn't matter what hand is coming down to pull you out, it's never long enough. Right? So it's a hard climb back out. I can relate to that.
But you know, like even I talked about the adrenals and how copper is initially a stimulant, the amphetamine effect, the stimulatory effect, wearing down the adrenals, leading into adrenal fatigue, leading into adrenal burnout. Well, what is adrenal burnout? You have low energy. What is low energy? It's a state of depression. It's hard to be giddy and thrilled about life when you have no energy. So a large part of addressing depression is what's happening with your physical energy body. If you have no energy to put out there, you're not going to be thrilled and living on top of the world, right?
No.
So,
I can completely relate to that. There's another question I've got burning to ask, but go on. Go on. All right, I've got to ask it. I have fibromyalgia. I mean, you're talking about lack of energy. We're always running at a battery that can only charge halfway and depletes very quickly. And so you're always in fatigue. You get up, you're always in your fatigue. Your body always feels like it's done a massive workout. And so you're dragging yourself all the time. And I'm wondering, could fibromyalgia be at all, which I don't know if you've come across this, a mineral imbalance in the body? Or a lack of? Or
no, I would say yes. I mean, mineral balances do play a role for sure. And I think also, like we talked about this yesterday.
We actually did. It's interesting that it came up. There's a belief system tied to fibromyalgia as well that you can look on the energetic level. So it's that feeling of carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, or that you're always that you're responsible for everyone, right?
Yes.
And so
especially when you're an empath.
Yes, bingo, big time, right? Because you feel everything, and when you have that helper nature as well, you want to help, but it's when that want to help starts feeling like a responsibility, right? And so physical ailments will actually start on a discord at the spiritual level, then the emotional level, and then finally they manifest at a physical level, right? So because we are also physical beings, being able to balance it at the physical level while you're also healing the emotional and spiritual level, and finding the belief system and the discord up here while supporting the biology down here, it moves it huge, you know, to being able to heal that. So where you can take a look at it on the mineral level, you know, also what are your belief systems here in regards to how are you carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? And how do you feel about that kind of thing? And moving through those belief systems and shifting those belief systems and letting that go gives the body the space to heal as well while you're supporting it biologically.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, there's always so many, you know, most people just like one brush, that's it.
Yeah.
And there is not one brush, you know. This painting requires many colors in order for it to have its clarity. How much, I mean, we really don't hear much about mineral at all. You know, it's mining, you know, mineral mining. That's what you hear about. You don't hear about it in the body.
Or take calcium.
Right, exactly. Magnesium, calcium is short on that and all that type of thing. And with fibromyalgia, of course, they say magnesium, calcium, and vitamin D, right? So how does one know if one's body is out of balance minerally or not? Is there a test for it? Is there something you can do? Is there a way of rebalancing?
No, for sure. Let me ask you, as the average person out there interested in what's my mineral balance, what would you do? What would you think would be the common approach?
To finding out, or what I think is my mineral imbalance?
No, like how would the average person find out? What would you do?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I mean, it's not something, probably research something on the internet.
Okay.
You know?
Oh, I mean, the typical approach is just do a blood test and see what the
All
blood
right.
test shows.
But
Right? I mean,
but
that's
who looks at the blood test and knows what it is? Because most doctors don't even address mineral.
well, exactly, right? So most blood tests don't even test for a proper mineral profile. First of all, yes. In Anna's case, you had a blood test, and because of the copper IUD, they specifically tested copper. So that was elevated in the blood. But for the most part, so the thing to understand with blood is homeostatic. It's always working to return to a normal, healthy range. By the time certain mineral imbalances show up in your blood test, especially like a magnesium deficiency or potassium deficiency, you're in the 11th hour of illness. It's way too late. Okay. So almost always you will have blood tests come back within a normal range. In a case of high copper in the blood, look at, is there an ongoing current source of exposure? So if a copper IUD is in the body leaching out copper, that could explain why copper is elevated in the blood. But take that copper IUD out and blood will return back to normal within a week or so. Okay. That does not mean that you don't have deficiencies at the cellular level or toxicities stored in tissues. Okay. And everybody has toxicities of some level, whether it's copper, whether it's mercury, arsenic, aluminum, uranium. I mean, these metals are all around us, and it's in our air, food, and water. So none of us are immune to not having some level of toxic metals in our system. Again, the blood tests aren't going to show that. And everybody, I would say 99% of people, have at least a magnesium or potassium imbalance at the cellular level. Okay. And that is also news to most in the medical field, because the idea of supplementing potassium is almost unheard of. Like, why would you need potassium? I had my banana this morning. And that's so far from how our body works. So, I mean, I have caseloads of people who've had their blood tests, and then we do an HTMA, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis test. And the blood test shows, as expected, everything is within range. Patient has symptoms, doctor looks at the blood test, everything looks good to me, you have no problems, everything is fine. I look at what's happening at the cell tissue level, there are the imbalances, as clear as day. So the work that I do, I do education, but I also do testing. So the testing work that I do is hair tissue mineral analysis. I'm using hair as a biopsy. And there are lots of different kinds of hair mineral analysis testing out there. Not all of them are legitimate. Not all of them use proper testing labs. And that's why there's so much confusion out there about HTMA. But using proper testing labs and proper interpretation, because it's all about the interpretation of the charts, it provides a brilliant look at your overall mineral status. That's how you would find out. You can do a blood test, like I said, it's homeostatic. You can do the hair test I just mentioned, or you can do a urine analysis as well. Okay, you can do a urine challenge test. But the urine challenge tests also typically only show what you're excreting at that moment, and more the superficial excesses. Copper, we're talking copper here. So a lot of copper is stored deeply in the body. And you can do a 24-hour provoked urine challenge test. It might show copper, which is great. If it does, then you know there's a copper issue. But in some cases, it doesn't show the copper. And yet, there's a copper excess issue in the body. So ideally, if you can do all three, blood, urine, and hair, that's going to give you obviously the best overall picture. But for one test alone, the hair analysis would give you a brilliant look at what's happening with the mineral status, what's happening with thyroid, what's happening with your adrenal function, what's happening with your digestive function, what's happening with your stress, toxic metals, all of that.
So basically, it's just pluck a hair out with the
No,
root.
you don't pluck a hair. No, there is a service that does that. There is a service that says, well, we'll pluck one hair out, and that's nonsense. It drives me nuts when I see that kind of nonsense out there. No, you need a tablespoon of hair. They sample it at one of the top testing labs, or Trace Elements or Analytical Research Labs. They are the ones that did all the initial research in this entire field 30, 40 years ago. have the hair tested through one of those labs, and then properly interpreted.
And so when it is interpreted and you find out that you have maybe not just the copper, but what other elements are in us that can throw our whole bodies off and cause other problems?
Oh, well, that's vast. Every mineral will cause issues.
If it's too extreme. So again, it's about keeping the balance of it?
Yes. So, for example, calcium, we talked about that shortly earlier, right? The message to most women as they get older is take calcium for your bones. And that's actually going to lead to osteoporosis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's not that we all need more calcium. We need to think of how do we keep calcium in our bones.
Absorption.
Okay? Absorption.
Mm-hmm.
And most people are already overcalcified, and most people already have a magnesium deficiency.
Mm.
So by taking more magnesium, you're actually keeping calcium in your bones. But this idiotic message to just take more calcium is creating this huge calcium-magnesium imbalance, which then causes a loss of calcium from your bones. You also need vitamin K2 to also support calcium absorption. Okay. So
not heard that one. What
yeah.
is K2?
It's a vitamin, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So this what we hear in mainstream messages like take calcium for your bones, take vitamin D because it's a sunshine vitamin. It's just so much fluff, and it's not really how our bodies work. You know, most people do not need to be supplementing vitamin D. And again, that's a controversial thing, but there's a lot of research.
Yeah, because I was told to increase my D because of the fibromyalgia.
Yeah, and people are being seriously hurt by taking high doses of vitamin D.
Okay, I'm cutting back. Live and learn. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at a basic level, if you have low vitamin D, unless you live in a cave all year long, the first thing to look at is what's happening with your magnesium, because your magnesium is what supports your natural vitamin D level. And you can raise your vitamin D levels naturally by supporting your magnesium level.
So I take every night a magnesium with calcium and vitamin D in it.
Yeah, so at least they're together, which is not that bad. When we could talk much more about specific, products, I would be looking at the calcium magnesium balance and what's the ratio. Is it a 1-to-1 ratio? If so, great. If it's a 3-to-1 magnesium ratio, I'd be cautious.
Right. So, osteoporosis with calcium, and of course, we're told we need more of all of this because of arthritis. It's, as I said, after menopause, they then kind of gear you for old age. And if you don't take this is, you're not going to be able to do that in your old age. And it does get very, very confusing because, again, with the internet, there's so much information out there. Mm-hmm. And it gets confusing as to, well, what am I meant to take? What am I meant to do? And we know, I think at a core level, right, Anna, that we know something's off. Mm-hmm. We know something's wrong. I have every reason in the world to be happy. All right. I enjoy what I do. But so why is everything feel like you're swimming through molasses? Right. And then you feel, well, come on, just get over it. And you start beating yourself up because, it's, you shouldn't be feeling this way. You've got no reason to feel this way. And then the fight with yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's spiral. And all the time, it just simply could be that you've got these minerals in your body that you shouldn't have or off balance. Mm-hmm. So
largely, that's the case. In many cases, that's the case. And these answers are not, this information is not being taught out there. It's not being given to people.
Yeah. So we have all these metals in our body, as you said, they're all around us in our water and everything else. And the main thing is not to have too much of any one of them. So once you've had your test done and you can see where the extremities are, how does one detox something like copper from your body once you discover you've got too much of it in there?
First of all, get properly tested.
Right.
Understand your overall mineral profile. What's happening with other key minerals like zinc, manganese, molybdenum, things that people don't even consider usually.
Right. Two words you've just said I've never heard of.
Right. Well, but these all have a relationship with copper. So, and they can be used to support copper detox. Unfortunately, the message that's also commonly put out there on the internet is just take zinc to detox copper because zinc and copper have this antagonistic relationship. Well, that is true, but that's more so at the absorption level, intestinal absorption level, in terms of accumulating copper. So for someone who is, for example, vegetarian or vegan, it's helpful to supplement zinc to protect against excess copper accumulation. So in that sense, zinc is important. But in terms of copper detox, just taking zinc is causing a lot of problems for people. That's not the way you detox copper. The number one way that copper leaves the body is through bile. Okay, so we're thinking bile, you got to think about, well, what's happening with your gallbladder, your liver, and then your adrenal system. They all play a role in the secretion of bile, which then helps escort copper out of the body. So there's the liver support, the bile support I mentioned, and then the proper nutrient support to address the copper issue. And what I mean by that, without trying to get too technical here, is there's a difference between copper toxicity, where the copper is already being mobilized in your body and circulating, versus a stored, hidden copper toxicity, where the copper, you have all this excess, but it's stored in your body. It's not being mobilized yet.
Right.
And depending which of those situations you fall into, then there's a specific nutrient approach to address each one of those, but you don't want to do one for the other. Exactly.
Right. In other words, don't go jumping into buying all of these things because you don't know in what you need until you've had the test done.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Anna, about the stomach, the stomach being off. Emotional is going to do that. It's going to kind of turn our stomachs and churn our stomachs. But is this, do you think, something also to do with excess either copper or something else in the body that's just not allowing the body to digest?
Anytime your body's in a fight or flight response, one of any system that it doesn't need to get the hell out of there is shut down. Digestion is one of them. Sex drive is another, right? So that alone can play a role into, where the digestion lies and the comfort of your stomach level,
right.
Going through, the excess copper. On a mineral side,
well, on the mineral side, excess copper leads into slow metabolism and a loss, or not a loss, but a lack of hydrochloric acid. So if you have low hydrochloric acid, HCl, which 80% of people do, then you're not absorbing your nutrients. So that's a big issue. So, that can lead into poor bile production. That can lead into poor mineral levels. That can lead into anemia. So what's happening with your HCl? Understand that. And copper contributes to low HCl. Copper itself is an antifungal. So if you have candida and you have all this unavailable copper, well, now copper is not available to do its job as an antifungal to control candida. So candida might be more prone to flourishing, right? So yes,
how many people have candida? I mean, it's really, really high.
Yeah.
I'm going to get tested because I'm sure. I am sure that has been, I've gone through pretty well every avenue. And I'm always saying is that my metabolism is slow. And because, I'm a 80% vegetarian vegan. I eat fish and chicken now and again if I'm out. Otherwise, it's my veggies. I love me veggies, right? But I find everything so hard to digest. And the stomach reacts to everything. And it's like, I've been on the probiotics and the, this and that, etc. And it doesn't matter what I take, it still has the issue. So clearly the issue has to be beyond everything I've looked at and to something I didn't even know to look at.
Right.
Right? That's one of the problems. People don't know, mineral, what are you talking about? Copper?
Yeah.
No, mercury, I understand. But copper? I have a copper bracelet here that somebody gave me, that you wear for arthritis. And so we don't look at copper as the enemy. But everything is an enemy if it's too much of one thing, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, yes.
All about balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Whew, yeah, whew, shaking me up today, that's for sure.
And I also want to...
How much hair do you want? I'll shave it off if you need it.
I also want to put out there that, beyond testing, Rick has actually also created this amazing course. And, I have a nutrition background, I well, I never think I know it all, but, you know, I thought I had a good understanding. And then I did his course, which is all about the minerals and, you know, a lot more than what we talked about here, and completely changed, you know, my outlook on food and all of that stuff. So I'm going to lead him into
yeah. Well, a nutritionist should know about it.
They don't.
They don't.
No.
But that should be part of the
should be,
right.
because it's the minerals are upsetting the balance in the stomach, and the food and the nutrients aren't being absorbed. It doesn't matter how much nutrient you're putting in.
No, it doesn't.
Right.
And we're very macro focused in this world, right? But again, like you just said, if you don't have the support system within your body to assimilate those macronutrients, doesn't matter how healthy you're eating.
Right. So, and, you know, I mean, I'm a 6 veggie a night, you know, and my oats and my banana and my fruit in the morning, you know, and it's like, I shouldn't be, you know, and I've always just put it down to the fibro, but, you know, it's the feeling a snail, you know, the sluggish snail all the time. And if there had to be some other answer, and of course, I never would have thought of mineral. Never.
Well, you know, most of my students that take my course are nutritionists, and it wasn't, the course was not designed for practitioners. It was designed for the general public to empower the everyday person with this information so they can support themselves. But because nutritionists and practitioners tend to gravitate towards education more, they're the ones that are taking my course. And with Anna's nutritional background, my nutritional background, we were never taught this stuff in conventional education.
Absolutely not.
And I have my clients that I work with from a testing level and protocol level. I mean, they also include nutritionists and gold medal level athletes and people who should have the tools or the knowledge to eat healthy or make smart nutritional choices. And I tell you, every one of them also has imbalances. So it's not about, well, I shouldn't say it's not about, but it's only half about what you're eating.
Yeah.
It's the other half is what you're assimilating.
Yes,
okay?
and I'm going to throw in a dash of emotion along with that too.
And and then the stress and everything else.
Yeah. It certainly kind of thing explains me, and as I said, whatever amount of hair you need, I'm sending it. Because I'm always looking for answers. I hate feeling the way I'm feeling, and I know others do too. And it's, you know, yes, I know I'm getting older, but, you know, God, if I'm feeling this tired now, where am I going to be 10 years from now? You know, if I'm struggling digesting now, what's it going to be later? You know, just a little soup through a straw. I don't want to be there. I like my food.
And straws are being cut out now because
exactly. Unless you're at Humble Roots, they have bamboo straws. But, you know, the point is life is changing. And, you know, the reason I call this particular genre of the show, Your Health is Your Choice, is the fact that when we know something's wrong, it's up to us to investigate all the options to understand what is wrong and how to put it right, because ultimately we are our own healers. We go to other people to help balance us and put us on the right path. And we have to take that responsibility. You know, rather like politicians, we treat doctors as if they know everything. And they only know what they've studied. And we know they've never studied nutrition. And most certainly minerals, what you're talking about. You know, mercury poison, I understand. You know, anything else, forget it. Because they're there to fix something when it's broken. But if you are balancing out nutritionally and minerally and emotionally, you don't need, quote, the doctor, we hope, because you are in sync with your own mind, body, and soul here, which is where we really need to be.
Right. Yeah.
Getting there.
Yeah.
That's the question. Getting there. And as you said, Anna, you don't want people to go through 7 years before they kind of come back to it. Although the universe, don't argue with it, it decided that time.
No, and I'm grateful. Yeah, like I said, I'm grateful for my journey. I wouldn't have changed it. But if I can now help people go through that a little quicker than 7 years.
Yes.
And I'm all for that.
And everything that you've learned in 7 years, Rick, I mean, I'm sure when you started this path, you didn't know it was going to help so many people or that it was such a big issue.
No, I had no idea. My intention was not to become the world's leader in this education. I had no idea. I just wanted to help her.
Right, exactly.
but you know, I mean, I very quickly saw how huge of an issue this is and how many people are being affected and their lives are, there's so much suffering going on because this information is either not known, or in some cases even purposely suppressed.
Right. Yeah.
And there is that going on. There is a lot of purposeful suppression of this information by people who don't want this information out there. So,
Yeah.
I don't, you know.
Yeah, we find that a lot, don't we? Yes,
Yeah.
in certain places even more. Now, you know, the copper tea is not going to be a men's issue, but I'm sure men have an imbalance of minerals in their own body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the chemistry of a man and a woman are different, but how does it affect men in any way, and how do they get it in abundance? You know?
Yeah, okay. Let me answer that question in a two-pronged approach. So first of all, the copper IUD, copper tea, not a men's issue, yes, from a physical standpoint,
right.
But the man is with the woman. So the more that he can educate himself, because she is going through changes, her emotions are changing. And like you said, a lot of guys will just give up, throw their hands up and walk away because they don't understand what's happening to her. Just as often as the woman also goes into numbness and walks away herself. So, you know, this copper imbalance is a huge cause behind a lot of divorce rates and breakups, whether it's the woman walking away or the guy walking away. So I would suggest in a relation,
breaking up with the fiance.
Yeah, so I would suggest, you know, for men, if your woman is on a copper IUD, like learn this information as well to support her if you care about her. This is right. You know, this is a foundation of your relationship or your emotions. Right. Understand what she's going through. Then the other part of your question was, how do men get copper toxicity? Well, the primary way would be in utero. So it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl. If the baby is born to a copper toxic mother, then that baby inherits in utero by the placenta. The fetus picks up part of the mother's copper load. And that's why a lot of boys, men today also have copper issues. Not as prevalent, of course, as females, because also it's the estrogen effect that also compounds copper, right? So women are definitely more prone to it, but men are not immune to it. So if you've picked up some in utero, then if you add on vegetarian vegan diet, then if you add on copper piping in your home, if you're trying to live healthy and eating organic produce in the US, which is sprayed largely with copper sulfate, it's been banned in Europe as a toxin, but here in North America, it's supposedly safe. You know, I mean, there's all these reasons why a person...
Scratch your head on that one, right? Yeah. Everywhere in the world it's not, but North America it is. Yeah, everybody's safe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Frustrating. I mean, you talked about, you know, the medical field. You know, a lot of people, we see it in the States, a lot of alternative medicine, people being killed. And that's a fact, you know, because the medical world doesn't want people going and looking at a different way to heal themselves. You know, pharmaceutical doesn't want that. They want you to have a drug for everything. Right. And this is a fact. It's not a drama. It's a trauma that is going on, and it is a system that you're fighting up against, right? And a system of the legitimacy and this and that, and very often the system that you're fighting up against knows nothing about what you're doing, right? It's just that it's not medicine under the usual brackets, so therefore what is it? And if it's not that, then you can't have it anyway.
Right. Yep.
So the battle is on.
I get that pushback all the time. You're not a doctor. What do you know?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make your choice.
Yeah. I had an acupuncturist who is brilliant, and she'd been doing it 36 years. And she always upgraded new techniques and new styles and knew that. And what a difference she made to my body. Absolutely amazing. Because she was dedicated to it. I'd rather go to someone who is dedicated to a particular avenue and wants to know everything about it so they can serve their clientele better than somebody who is a generalist. You know, we need generalists in certain industries, but in the medical industry, I'd rather you be a specialist. And deal with the one thing with the open mind to also know how everything else is affecting it as well. So,
and you know, I have different training than what most nutritionists and doctors have, and I don't have all the answers. But I can tell you that probably 80 or 90% of my clients have come to me after they've spent year after year, many years, seeing various practitioners and doctors and not finding answers. And in a split second, I can look at a chart and tell them, well, this is at least part of what's going on for you. Why wasn't this information given to them 5-10 years ago? It should have been.
But how many doctors actually even know about it?
Very few.
Or even willing to know about it.
Yeah, and this is not about bashing doctors, because doctors definitely have a role. We need to acknowledge them for the life-saving work that they do. But in terms of nutrition and the mineral connection to health symptoms, they do know very little.
Very, very little. I think it's, 40 minutes nutritional class in medical school. You know, it's and that was elective. You know, whether they wanted to do it or not.
It's around 25 hours, I think, of nutritional training they take. And then out of that, how much is minerals? You know, a fraction of that. It's very different from 7,000 hours that I have.
Yes, yeah. We're very, very complex creatures. You know, the way we're made up, you know, the emotional side of us, the spiritual side of us, the physical side of us. We're very intricate. And, you know, when you look at a baby being manufactured, being born, it's truly is a miracle for all of this to come together. But we take life in a very complacent way, and we don't realize we need to look after this vehicle. And we need to keep it well oiled, well gassed, well looked after machine. And if it's not performing right, that means something is off and we need to address it. And if we can't find it from our doctor, don't just sit there going, oh, there is no answer because my doctor said there isn't.
Yeah, and it's not all in your head.
No, it's not all in your head. You know, we have programs like this that are there to open up your mind, open up your door to what possibly could be wrong. And what is it? It's a few hairs that are going to help you find out where the imbalance is. When you do that, how do you balance them out, Greg?
Well, based on what the lab charts show, and you see what's in excess or what's in deficiency or what toxins you have, what imbalances there are, then I put together a protocol that addresses not only the obvious imbalances, but I'm also listening to the symptoms. Okay, because the hair test doesn't always show everything. It's a screening tool. It is not a diagnostic test. It's a screening tool. Okay, and I have tools far beyond just the HTMA that I can use to address certain symptoms and also offer support there. So I'm looking at the HTMA, I'm listening to the symptoms, and then I put together a protocol to help people.
Right. And then Anna steps in and helps them emotionally go through it.
Yes, and you know, I also, because I've got the nutrition background, I can create a nutrition guide based on his protocol and what, you know, the client needs nutritionally to help raise the minerals in the diet, not just on the supplement, as well as the supplement side. But then, the emotional side is big, because even as you're, you know, detoxing from copper or coming down, right? If you can support that fight or flight system and lowering it as much as you can while you're taking the minerals, you're going to progress your healing that much more, because you're giving your body can't heal when it's in that high rev zone.
You're giving it permission, right?
Yeah, and you're giving it can only do its job when it's in the calm state, right? And so taking your healing approach and putting it, you know, day to day, you know, and making that choice every day to lower that and put it in a calm state, so then it can utilize the nutrients that you're putting in your body. It augments the healing that much. So that's the side of the journey, or the healing, that I help with.
We've done 2 shows before, Anna, and I said her mentor show, which is what her work is all about, which now incorporates this, which didn't at the time. So we'll have to do an add-on there. And the first show where we were talking about the weight of things, you know, and that there's the physical weight, which I definitely got some COVID weight, definitely. They were called oatmeal and raisin cookies that were at my desk because I was very busy, didn't have time to eat anything else. So, but there's also the weight, as you said before, carrying on the shoulder, the weight that we carry. And something that happened in our past, it gets magnified so much when your body is off kilter.
Oh, big time.
Right? And so you get stuck in an emotion that is weighing you down, that if you were healthy, you would just look at it and just go flick off the shoulder, right? So, you know, when we're looking at somebody, you're making a mountain out of a molehill here. Well, why? You know, there has to be something else that's making you look at this in such a way that's pulling you down. So again, that equilibrium, that balance is so needed, and don't get stuck in the one groove. You know, if you're asking why, then that's the time to do the research to find out what is the cause behind it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I would, encourage every human, because I know the importance of it, to take the Mineral Mastery course, educate yourselves, learn this information, understand copper toxicity, how the toxic metals affect your body, all the reasons why we are getting toxic metals into our system, how you can use minerals to support your body to protect yourself against toxic metal accumulation. Why, for example, I mentioned vitamin D supplementation is not the smartest thing to be doing for most people. All these things that aren't really being taught out there, that's what I teach in Mineral Mastery. And what I can do for you, Sarah, for your viewers, I'm not sure when this video is going live or
Next
what.
week.
Okay, what I can do, just a coupon code for the course is mineralmastery.com. Your viewers can use the coupon code MyGiftToYou for $100 off the tuition.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Pregnancy. People who are pregnant and may have off kilter already with the mineral, and you're saying that it can affect the fetus.
Yes.
So what can someone do while being pregnant?
Well, during pregnancy is not the time to be going into a detox.
Right.
Okay, so during pregnancy, you want to be supporting your body from a nutritional aspect that is supporting the fetus, but not stirring up the toxins. And if you know that you are pregnant, if you know that you're copper toxic, if you discover that while you're pregnant, just let it sit. Okay, don't try and stir things up. Don't be adding in the high adrenal support or the manganese or things that can really stir up the copper at that time. Wait till postpartum, and then go into the detox stuff.
Right, but you said it can carry off into the baby anyway. So how would you do that?
But more so if you are actively detoxing during pregnancy.
Right.
Okay,
yeah.
So I mentioned earlier there is copper toxicity where the copper excess is being mobilized in your body, and there's also the copper toxicity where the copper is in excess, but it's stored. If it's stored, it's not really entering your bloodstream too much.
So you don't want to unlock that.
Exactly. Yeah. Keep that locked up until you give birth.
Until afterwards, yes. It really is quite amazing, of all the intricacies of the human body and mind and how one affects the other. And, how emotional we can get over something only to find it's actually a physical thing that's affecting the emotion. But equally an emotion, traumatic one, equally can upset the equilibrium of the body as well. So people who have gone through a trauma of any kind, I'm sure that it affects their mineral imbalance as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's, it is about the balance, and to understand the balance isn't a perfect balance, but being able to go up and down in a nice flow that isn't extreme, rather like the water's running down the stream and the wind rustling through the leaves. We want it to be gentle. Yeah. A gentle equilibrium, and not rigid, and also not prone to highs and lows, because you knew what the highs were and you also knew what the lows were, right, Anna?
Oh yes. Definitely had a lot of those back then.
And it's a roller coaster that we prefer to get off. Thank you. I'll go on the horsey roundabout.
I like the nice gentle ride.
Yeah, exactly, yes. The Ferris wheel is a nice one, you've got the highs and the lows without it being so extreme. Yes. That's what we all want in our life, actually, is to find that that we are healthy, and more and more people today are looking at their nutrition, looking at their bodies, looking at what affects them emotionally, because we know that stress is one of the biggest diseases in the body that affects everything. But we are seeing more and more people step up in investigation, taking control of looking at, well, maybe this is the answer. My doctor hasn't got it. Maybe this is the answer. I'm going to go and try and see if this works. And if you aren't willing to do that, then you're never going to get to the root of the problem. And you're never going to get into the balance. And minerals, I don't think I've done a show on minerals before, and certainly not the fact of the toxicity that's in our body, or how it can affect the digestion and the absorption. You pop all these pills and nutrients in you're good food, but the body isn't absorbing it. Right? So what good is it? And people will look at a course, I can't afford to pay for a course. I say, okay, cut down on the food for a moment because you're not absorbing it anyway.
Right.
Go and take the course,
Yeah.
and then you'll learn how to absorb it better and feel better. Right?
Right.
That's the important thing.
Yeah.
Well, you know, again, it's a lovely love story, the way that you both took your separate paths. And, you know, had she not gone on the Copper Tea, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, helping all these people around the world. And you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, Anna. And for you to come back now and kind of create a whole, I think is beautiful. And I'd love to see that, because obviously you guys were meant to be together.
Yes.
And now as a duo, you know, you're taking care of both sides of the scale, which is good, which is really important, and you're working together. So Anna, for you, is everything that you're doing nutritionally on both sides, or how are you working with that?
Sorry, the question.
Well, you have your site for your work before. Rick has his site, but are you cross-siting? So
No,
people know how to find you.
We still have separate websites, but the information is kind of, there's cross information on both sites at this point. Yeah. So yeah.
There is cross-pollination happening by way of joining. I mean, she has her packages, I have my packages, and we're putting together the ultimate package where we both join individual tools together.
And then you have arrows that obviously point to each other. So
yes.
Of course.
Okay, so what are those sites that people can get hold of you at?
Mine is www.awakenedyou.ca. And I only have one website.
And so I've got several. So for the viewers of this video who are probably very interested in the Copper IUD and copper symptoms, that website is coppertoxic.com. Okay, and there are more than a dozen tabs on there about the emotions, about the adrenals, about the calcium shell, which we didn't even talk about today, but that affects the emotions as well. Detoxification guidelines, all kinds of information there. So coppertoxic.com. The course that I mentioned is mineralmastery.com. And I mentioned that coupon code MyGiftToYou for $100 off. And the consultations and testing that I do is through mineralsandhealth.com. And there's also a lot of articles on that website, including the vitamin D thing I mentioned. There's an article on vitamin D and explaining why I mentioned, you know, be cautious with that. So lots of information on mineralsandhealth.com as well. And
you have a mineralsandhealth.com. That's also
That's right.
And they can get hold of you at Rick at integrativehealthcoaching.ca.
That's correct.
Excellent.
Integrative.
Sorry, I haven't got my glasses on.
No, you said it. You said it correctly.
Okay. Yeah. And of course, there is a Facebook group which people can go to, the Copper IUD Toxic Education and Support. So they can go to that, and so if they have questions or they just want to follow what's been going on. And I will certainly put up your offer, which is wonderful. Thank you. And you know, I'm definitely interested to know, because I've gone down so many different routes, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and it should make sense, and it's not. So there's still an issue. So clearly I need to find out what's going on. And that's what we want. When we have the answers, when we know what to do, then we're more empowered to actually do it. But most of the time it's the confusion.
Yeah.
Right? You know, with you, Anna, when you were going through this, you went down this avenue because you thought that was the avenue for you. And, you know, now you realize everything that you've learned in that avenue is absolutely great, but it means even more now that you have merged with Rick and understanding the minerals. So it's really fascinating how people come together, and the journey and the why behind it, you know. So I'm glad you both broke up. And I'm glad you found yourselves back together, because we wouldn't have all this information without, right? So that's very important. And kudos to you, Rick, for caring enough about to try and, you know, work out what was the problem, but then not just stopping once you found out, but, you know, really diving in and being the reporter to, you know, expose all that needs to be known, and giving people solutions. Because it's all very well giving people, this could be the answer, but what's the solution? That's what we all want to know. What's the solution? and we're willing to do whatever it needs in order to make ourselves feel better. So that's the very, very important thing. So that's absolutely great. Oh, so much information dived in here today. An awful lot, and you were talking about vitamin B's and a few others. So I think maybe we have to have you back, Rick, on that, because everybody says you got to have the B17 at least 3 times a week, and you got to have this and vitamin C every day. And now it's like, what? Is that information wrong?
So, as a general statement, there is no, like you said, we can't paint everybody with one brush. So even though vitamin C is important, vitamin D is important, all these minerals and vitamins are important. What's good for you might not be good for me, might not be good for her. Let's look at what's happening bio-individually with each of us through proper testing, through evidence, and then target our nutrition accordingly. Not wasting money on the multivitamins that are mass-produced to sell millions to millions, that really aren't, you're peeing it out or you're not absorbing it.
Right.
Know what's happening with you as an individual, and then supplement and diet accordingly.
You're specializing in you.
Yeah.
Right? Because what you're doing now is you know what your body needs and what you need to give your body in order for it to function properly.
Right.
And it's not like, well, it worked for Jane over there and she did this and she did that, but it's not working for me. You're different chemistry.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Understand your different chemistry. And that's the thing we've got to understand. We talk about this spirituality and emotionally, we are all beautifully, imperfectly unique. That goes for our body chemistry as well.
Yep.
And that's the thing. Whatever your health journey is on, whether it's copper, whether it's weight, whether it's cancer, whether it's whatever it might be, it's human nature to compare your progress to what everybody else is doing, and you want to know, well, how did it work for you, and how long did your healing take, and all that. And really, it's irrelevant, because your situation, your story, your beliefs, your mineral profile, your detoxification ability, all these factors make you individual and makes your journey individual, right? So don't focus on everybody else. Focus on you as the individual that you are.
Comparison is deadly, right? And it becomes competitive, and then you forget the reason why you're doing it in the first place. So it's not a comparison. It's not a competition. It's an embracement of yourself, and it's placing the value and importance of self upon self, because we're the caretakers of ourselves, right? And we have to make sure we have the right knowledge and know what we're doing in order to take care of ourselves, because our health matters, each and every one of us. But it, as you said, it's not one brush, one size fits all.
No.
Because I can promise you it doesn't. So I definitely want to investigate even more, because I think that could very well be my problem. As I said, I've tried everything else, and that's the thing out there, folks. If you've tried everything else and this kind of rings a bell, it doesn't matter whether you've been on the Copper the Copper IUD or not. It's just that what are the metals, the minerals in your body? Are they in sync with each other? Are they combative? Are they stopping you from absorbing nutrients? Well, where is your metabolic system, in all of this? So it's good to know, because now you've got a starting point. And Rick will support your body, Anna will support your heart, mind, and soul, and together, you'll find your wonderful balance, which is what we want. We want to be progressive in our own lives, in our own calling, in our own, purpose. We can't do that if we're dragging ourselves.
No.
Yeah.
Right. So first and foremost, invest in you, and then you'll be able to turn around and invest in others. So that's
exactly.
Yep.
Excellent.
Beautifully
Thank you
said.
so much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Sarah.
Thank you.
And I think we'll have to have you back on more on the vitamins and which serve and which don't, because information. That's what we need. Information. We have too much information from the media. Right, you got to buy, this is your problem, you got to buy. And we don't have enough individual information for us to understand that we're all differently unique. And so it is not a one size fits all. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks,
And
Sarah.
for Anna and her mentorship and what she does, please go to either selfdiscoverycommunity.org mentorship directory or selfdiscoverymedia.com in the mentorship, and everything that she does and what she offers and the shows that we've done before are all there. Until next time, folks, remember, your health is your choice, so please investigate what could be the problem and get yourself balanced. Both Anna and Rick are here for you. Until next time, bye for now. We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows. Please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see the incredible lineup of genres and shows that we have for you. We are here to make a difference in your life. Thank you for listening.